Okay, we are live. Let me just check. Okay. So happy Thursday, everyone. I want to just reflect a little bit on the sugar challenge today and also dive into one of your comments that came in this morning, because I think it's her comment brought up an important conversation that I want to talk a little bit about. So first of all, how's it going? How is the sugar detox challenge going? My observation for myself yesterday was again, and so I started with you all on Monday, so yesterday was Wednesday, so day 3, and I still have the urge after lunch to have something sweet, and was staying with it and allowing that space for the pause. And that's what I want to talk about today, is the space for the pause. Because I noticed, and look, I've been doing this work for years and I already know these things, but we can forget them. And it does me good to remind myself of them again as well, is that the initial response is have some sugar. And again, if we're not talking about sugar, whatever it is that's problematic for you, right? Insert that here. The initial response is, yes, have the thing. And it's very quick and it's very immediate. And that is the indicator that that's your dopamine response. That's your wired neural pathway. That's the patterned behavior, habitual, or response to a chemical wiring in the brain, because it happens immediately, just like that. And it's powerful. When I say powerful, it is, what was it yesterday? I'm trying to express the words that it felt. It felt as if it was a foregone conclusion, right? It felt as if, oh, yes, sugar after a dessert after lunch. That's what you want. And it was a foregone conclusion. And it was immediate, and it would have driven me immediately to go to, where our chocolate is kept and have a piece of chocolate and move on. Now, again, this is not the end of the world. Me having a piece of chocolate after lunch this is not a big deal, but that's not the point. The point is noticing how automatic and quickly that response was, recognizing that it was a trained response. Now, to jump out of that, as I mentioned yesterday, we don't want to fight with it. We don't want to get involved. We don't want to, well, you can just have one. No, you really shouldn't. But come on, it'll just taste good. No, I really don't want to. We do not get involved with that neural pathway. It's strong, it's habitual, it's automatic. And one of the places I teach first in the SHIFT program is the science behind what's happening in those unconscious parts of the brain that are responsible for habituation and automaticity. And so when we have that automatic, oh yeah, I have sugar after lunch, that's what I do. I will teach you where that comes from and why it's so powerful and hard for us to overcome unless we bring it to the level of consciousness that we're doing together here, right? So had I not taken a moment for that pause and done this challenge with you all, it would have just been automatic. It would have been a foregone conclusion. Trigger to eat sugar. Oh yeah, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to eat it. And there we are. The way this plays out in everyday life for you all is that that's how you are eating, and that's how many of you are eating habitually and in response to emotion, right? The dopamine triggers, it's a foregone conclusion. There's not a space for the pause. Go do the behavior, then you've got the shame and guilt afterwards. That's how most of us function. So in this challenge, remember, the point is not so much the content, right? The point is not so much whether we eat the sugar or not. The point is the context and changing the context with which we make our food decisions, right? So anyways, back to what happened for me yesterday. Took my own advice, it really does work, and said, interesting. There is that urge to eat the sugar again. Disconnected from it, separate from that thought, right? Interesting, there is the urge to eat that sugar again. And then once I separated from it, it was almost immediate that the urge started to subside, because the separation from it took me out of that automaticity, that foregone conclusion. Dopamine to have sugar, eat the sugar. It broke it just enough It's hard to explain other than I felt it in my entire body go, oh, I have an option here. Do I want the option? Nah, I don't. And it not only dissipated the desire to have it in that moment, but that pause allowed me the space to disconnect from it. And it came up a couple more times before I, went downstairs and got back to my office and got back to work. Came up a couple more times, and each time, instead of getting involved in it, can I, can't I, should I, shouldn't I, do I, don't I? It was very much a 30,000-foot observer view saying, there's me having that desire again. Interesting, right? So it worked really well. And, day 3, still not having the sugar. So I'm curious how day 3 went for you all. Did you need to use the urge surfing? How did it go for you? Go ahead and write in the comments or ask me questions about it. I'm going to address this comment that came in, and I'm going to read it for you, and then I'll tell you what I understand that it means and then why I think it's important. So she said, thanks for the urge surfing technique. Maybe this is obvious to some people, but one of the things I'm finding as we go through this challenge and the ones before it is that if there is any amount of I can have it, no, I shouldn't going on before I eat the food, it's almost never going to be worth it. This is where I want to dive in here. It's almost never going to be worth it. I think in the past, the I can have it part of my brain believed that the deliciousness or the specialness of the food was going to convince the no, I shouldn't part of my brain that it was actually worth it to eat that food. By really paying attention and checking in with myself throughout my eating experiences, I've realized that at least for me, no matter how quiet the it's not worth it voice is before eating, if it's there, it's going to be loud afterwards. Another key point here. So for me, the is it worth it question is really not a matter of listening to see which answer is stronger. I guess that's because the dopamine response is always going to be pretty powerful. It's whether the is it worth it voice is there at all. Okay, so essentially what she's saying is she asked herself the question, is it worth it? And the response is no, it's not. What she's saying is, in her experience, that it will always not be worth it. It will, if there is any amount of the it's not worth it there, then it will always not be worth it. And that will get stronger after she's eating it. And she's eaten it. In other words, what she's saying is, in her experience, it will never be worth it if there's even a little bit of the it's not worth it there. And here's why this is important to me, is because the response to is it worth it has a lot of variables mixed up in it. Diet culture, belief systems and identity, prior history, habits and messages, what you believe to be true about the food you're about to eat, what you believe the impact is going to be, all that diet culture messages. And so the response to is it worth it actually, truly, as you do this work over time, does shift and change. And as we start to dismantle where some of those belief systems and identity came from, we start to dismantle some of the food rules, when we start to dismantle some of the ways that we have habitually behaved in the past, what we believe to be true about eating things like sugar, those kinds of things. The response to the is it worth it question starts to shift and change over time, and it should shift and change over time. So I want to make sure we're careful not to assume that no, it's not worth it is, number one, a blanket statement to, all treats, right? That if the whole thing is not worth it, then the bite is also not worth it. That is a very clear distinction, because if we get caught up in because what she's saying here is that if there's any part of my brain that says, no, this is not worth it, then that will grow and get stronger after I've eaten it. And that is an indicator of the shame and the guilt that is attached to the answer to that question. Is it worth it? No. And then I eat it, and then my shame and guilt grows, right? It becomes really not worth it afterwards because I have this emotional reaction to it. And what I will tell you is, in my experience in working with hundreds, if not thousands of clients, is that the response to is it worth it does change over time. Not only does it change, the quantity of how much is worth it changes, the content changes. Like, that chocolate chip cookie that my mom made actually is worth it. But that Hershey's chocolate that I kept snacking on, not so worth it, right? We start to get clearer about the distinctions about what actually is worth it and how much, right? For me, I've given this example a number of times in my groups, is that there's an ice cream shop down the street from us that is incredibly good. Not only is it incredibly good, but it's like everybody in the neighborhood goes there, and in the summertime, there's always kids and families, and it's just really great sort of community feel. And the ice cream is so good. And for me, without fail, I mean, the ice cream is so good. And without fail, if I am staying connected and making space for the pause, the amount that's worth it of that ice cream is never an entire ice cream cone, truly. Not because I'm trying to regulate it, not because of the calories, not anything. It just becomes, after a few bites, if I'm staying connected, the stimulation of the ice cream fades, and it just becomes repetition, and it becomes dopamine response, and it becomes habitual to eat the whole thing. If I'm truly staying present and connected, I can tell when it's not worth it. And, I have a habit of maybe going a bite or two beyond that. And then it goes, hey, no, it's seriously not worth it. And I go, oh yeah, it's not, and throw it away. Right. And my kid will, she's asked me before when because I always get this kid scoop, right? You can get sort of 1 scoop, 2 scoops, small scoop. And then there's like a kid size, which is perfect for me. I mean, it's a kid size, and genuinely it's roughly the amount of bites that feel worth it. And sometimes not even that much. And to someone else, it might look restrictive of, why are you, only allowing yourself a tiny amount of ice cream? And the truth remains, and I'm telling you, this ice cream is so good and so worth it. But once I get past a certain amount, when I'm staying present and connected, it switches off. And what I promise you is that you all have that switch as well. And it will shift and change as you allow space for these questions to infiltrate, and as you take the pause. So just like yesterday, when I had that strong desire to have chocolate after lunch because it's habituated, that neural pathway has been wearing down. It's just my automatic response, right? I allowed space for that pause, and I allowed myself to get up and out of the thought and say, there I am with that desire to eat chocolate after lunch again. Interesting, right? No judgment, no getting involved, no I should or I shouldn't, none of that. Zero judgment or attachment or anything. The space for the pause, this is the key point, the space for the pause opens up so much information about whether or not you actually want to eat it. The same thing with the ice cream. I am caught up in the nostalgia of the kids and the people we're, talking to, and it's a summer day and we're eating ice cream and the ice cream's really good and all of it together. And still, that's like the perfect scenario. Ice cream's really good, nostalgia. There's all kinds of serotonin firing in me going, this is happy, you're happy, it's so happy, which would make someone eat all the ice cream, right? But if you have the space for the pause and stay connected, does this bite taste as good as when I started it? It actually doesn't. And your taste buds change after a few bites of things. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if you're really paying close attention, the first few bites of whatever it is that you're eating has a different mouthfeel, has a different dopamine response, has a different release of chemicals than the 8th bite. And if you're paying close attention, by the time there's no science to 3 bites versus 8 bites. I'm making things up here, okay? So don't take 8 bites and go, wow, I didn't taste it on that bite. It's a metaphor. But after you get to a certain number of bites, however many it is, you will start to notice that it doesn't give you the same mouthfeel, it doesn't have the same taste, it doesn't have the same reaction to your taste buds. Your taste buds are being desensitized to it, right? And so staying connected and allowing space for this pause gives you so much information. So I'm hoping that you're really, okay, so before I go there, going back to her point, what she's saying essentially is that if there is any of the it's not worth it, then it's going to be really loud afterwards, almost making the assumption of it's not worth it means it's going to lead to shame and guilt. And I want to make the argument that your it's not worth it changes. It changes what you feel is worth it changes, how much you feel is worth it changes, when you feel it's worth it changes. It does shift and change over time. So try not to make assumptions that like a blanket statement of, well, sugar is never going to be worth it because it's bad for me. Those kinds of things are going to shut down your access to the information like we were talking about. If you've got rules and beliefs and shoulds and shouldn'ts and diet culture and all kinds of stuff coming in, it's really going to shut down your access to the answer to those questions. I hope I addressed that clearly. And the other part I wanted to say to her was, and to all of you, is she's right when she says, I guess because the dopamine response is always going to be pretty powerful. Yeah, that dopamine response, that's the thing I was talking about at the beginning here. That's that automaticity. That's that quick, oh, you want chocolate, go eat it. And it's so quick. And it's that signal that the dopamine sends to the brain. Dopamine is the signaling that makes you want to eat it, right? Well, that's a science lesson for another day. I don't need to confuse you all with that, but that signaling is going to be strong because the dopamine's job is to get you, to drive you to do the thing, right? The dopamine job is to signal you to drive you to do the thing. So it's super quick and it's super strong. And if we don't make space for the pause, it's automatic. And that is what's happening for, gosh, I could go on another tangent here. If you do join any of my groups and programs, you will know this about me. I go on these tangents and I talk for a long time because I want to tell you all the things. So this 15 to 20 minute stuff is hard for me to do. But that dopamine response, that signal, that automaticity is designed to get you to do the thing, right? It's designed to trigger you to create the behavior. And so many of you that come to me that are dealing with binge eating or overeating or emotional eating or truly eating in response, right? Habitual eating, all of that stuff. It's a matter of disrupting that pattern enough for the pause so that there can be a different flood of information that comes in. And it's a matter of getting out of the fight, right? Because once, as I taught you yesterday, once you're involved in the fight, should I, shouldn't I, can I, can't I, do I, don't I, it's signaling the wrong part of your brain. It's signaling, without getting too deep into this scientifically, it's signaling the part of your brain that's responsible for habituation and automaticity. And once you've signaled that fight, it's real strong. It wants you to do the same, be the same, act the same, have the same. And so once you've signaled that part of your brain, it's a fight that you're likely going to lose. So what we want to do is practice signaling a different part of the brain. And when you use the part of the brain that is the observer, and when you observe yourself from a 30,000-foot view, you're signaling a different part of that brain. And that part of the brain gives you access to different information. It's so much more powerful. Oh, there's so much more to this. I just want to stay on here and teach you all day. So I hope that was helpful. Tomorrow we will wrap up the challenge. Well, I'll save it for tomorrow, but wrapping up the challenge doesn't mean go eat the sugar. So I'll tell you what I want you to do with this if you want. Again, it's all up to you. It's all what feels aligned for you. But don't go out and buy all the food because you've been off it for a week and yay, now I'm going to celebrate by eating it all. I'll tell you what we should do with this tomorrow as we wrap it up. Tomorrow we'll wrap up the sugar and I'll give you a hint about the next week. I will just say I am traveling a little bit over the Thanksgiving holiday. And as this is a free series, I am giving myself the grace and the space to have a little bit of a disjointed schedule next week. So I will still be going live every day, including Thanksgiving. I know. But I probably will not be on a time schedule because we will be traveling a little bit and I want to respect that I am going to spend time with my family, as should you all. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Actually, let me just check to make sure there's no questions on here, comments on here, no questions. Okay, great. I will see you all tomorrow. Continue with the challenge. I really want to hear about your experiences. So keep sending me messages and letting me know. Bye, everyone.